Hi, friends. So excited to talk to you about this week's episode, which I mentioned is my first full interview on the Oddly Enough podcast. And it is the second episode of the series, which is Enough in 2020. And I had the pleasure of interviewing my cousin, Zack. And Zack is a high performer. Zack is, man, if I had to describe Zack with one word, it would be yes. He is the ultimate yes man. If I were given a couple bonus words, I'd say energetic, hungry, determined, unapologetic, which you will certainly see and hear in this interview from this week. So Zack and I are going to talk about enough yes in 2020, how to incorporate more yes through the end of the year, and he'll share some stories of how being a yes man has really helped him to thrive in his career. We'll also talk about a couple of ways in which you can incorporate more yes into your life and kind of a little bit of an equation of yesness. So we'll talk about showing up. We'll talk about asking questions. We'll talk about doing your research as well. So we're going to share some great insights, some specific details of how he's gotten to where he has gotten into his career. And we'll have a little bit of fun too. We share some good laughs during this interview. Really had a great time, so I hope you enjoy it. All right, I'm so excited for my special guest today that I'm going to introduce to you guys here. And as a reminder, this is the new series called Enough in 2020. So we are talking all about how there is enough time, there's enough energy, there's enough tools and resources to still make this year an exceptional one. So I have the pleasure of interviewing my cousin Zack today. And this is Zack. We are cheersing to coffee. We planned to cheers with rosé, but we had a little bit too much last night. So coffee it is. But Zack is here as a very special guest. And what I'll be doing is I'll be interviewing high-performing friends, family members, colleagues that I have the pleasure of being in my life. So Zack here today, I thought would be a great first guest because Zack, there is absolutely nothing in Zack's mind that he cannot do. Zack has had a really interesting career that has brought him to the fitness industry. Yeah. And he's really kind of paved his own way into the industry. Yeah. He said, I'm here to F stuff up, keeping it PG for now. But Zack, he's always just been really inspiring with the energy that he brings. And Zack, if you could tell everybody, I kind of alluded to your journey, but tell us a little bit about what you do and how kind of you've got to where you are in your career.
Yeah, it started off kind of small. I really started in like 2007, started doing triathlons. And from 2006 to 2010, I lived in Austin. So I was kind of like racing around Texas and doing triathlons and slowly working in the gyms, teaching at like YMCA and 24-hour fitness, just smaller gyms.
Start to get followed.
Yeah. And then in 2010, I actually moved to New York for someone, which I never had a dream to live in New York City, but I did it. It lasted 3 weeks. Don't ever move for anybody. But I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I was kind of starting to thrive off of New York. So I had already worked at 24-hour fitness in Austin, and there was a 24-hour fitness in New York. And so I was like, I'll just contact them and maybe see, like, whatever. And I started teaching cycling classes for them and started doing that just very, like, the basic level, teaching at the worst times. Like,
and did you know what you were doing? Like, did you?
No, I was kind of making it up. I was kind of just making it up as I went. I did take some like cycling certifications, but through that, when someone tells me no, I've always been like this. Well, how am I going to get this person to say yes? Mm-hmm. Or don't tell me no. How can we work it out?
Yeah.
There's a way. There's a way. So if somebody's like, oh no, we can't do that because it's not in the budget, or no, we can't do that because of XYZ, and I'm like, what if I do it for free? Like,
where's the yes?
Yeah, like, where's the yes? So I've always been that way. And so through my time of teaching classes, and I just started putting myself out there, people invite me. They're like, hey, there's this fitness event going on in LA. And I was like, how can I get to LA? Like, or just anywhere. I would just show up.
Yeah.
And really just not ask questions and just kind of like finagle my way through and to meet people. And, so started teaching cycling classes, started meeting more people in New York, started getting those primetime spots, and really just showing that I really cared and I really wanted to like move up. I pretty much did all of that, worked with a bunch of people and worked my way through, and I knew I really wanted to do more in fitness, but I didn't know what side of it I wanted to do. So I found this group that works with autism and Down syndrome, and since my mom is a special needs teacher, I was just like, why not start doing something fitness for people with autism and Down syndrome? So I started creating fitness programs.
Which didn't exist.
Which did not exist. So I started doing that.
Where did you start to even, I think like some of our listeners are like, wow, this is cool.
Yeah.
Like, you're kind of like fake it till you make it.
Yeah, literally like fake it till you make it. So what I started with, there's this group in New York called Connections, and I got connected with them and connected with Connections. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. They really want me to just kind of volunteer and just be there doing like arts and crafts and doing other things like that. But I was like, you know what? I already teach indoor cycling classes, and I had started doing like boot camp classes. But I was like, and they didn't really like the boot camp type classes, but they loved like doing indoor cycling classes with TV screens and maybe music videos playing. So I was just kind of like, what senses? So I was like, okay, this is what they like, this is what they don't like, but the don't like, I need them to do. So how can I bring it together? And the group of Connections, they were like, well, listen, we have this budget. We can pay you this much. So do you want to jump on board and start doing this? And I was just like, absolutely. Like, I wasn't even expecting to be paid and start that, but they...
even if in your head you're like, how is that going to work?
Yeah. I'm very yes. I'm like, okay, I don't know, but I've never been afraid to ask questions. Like, I'm that person of like, if you tell me a joke and I don't get it, I'm not going to pretend to laugh. Like, I'm going to be like, I don't get it. Tell me what's going on. But I'm like that all the time as well. If I'm in a meeting or in anything, I'm like, you know what? I don't understand. Explain this to me. I'm not afraid to say that, where I feel like a lot of times people get very hesitant. They're like, oh, I don't know. So I'm just going to kind of sit here in the corner and pretend I know. I'm always will ask the questions. And when people have asked me to do different projects, I'll tell them, I don't know, but I'm not scared to ask the questions to figure it out.
Yeah.
And so I started doing that with this connection group and, just figuring out, like going and seeing these kids' lifestyles and like what they're liking, what they don't like, and just kind of bringing that into the fitness space. So I started doing that, and where I was working, and what's so crazy about all this, where I was working, so we, it's at the JCC, which is Jewish Community Center in New York on 76 in Amsterdam, if anybody knows that. So that's where I was working with the kids. And through there, I started meeting more people, being around, because they were like, oh, who's this guy? Like, what's going on? Oh, you're teaching these kids from Connections. And a client of mine randomly reached out to me and was just like, the doctor at NYU Medical is looking for a Parkinson's disease fitness person to like specialist to design fitness programs for people with Parkinson's. And I was just like, oh, I don't know much about Parkinson's, but like maybe it's a possibility. And they gave me this big book.
Tell me more.
Yeah. Like I'm not that person, just read. Like, let's see what's going on. So I got the book and read it for a couple of weeks, and then I was just like, okay, I want to know more. So I met with the actual movement doctor at NYU, and then we started talking, and then I just started going to Parkinson's events and like things. And then I just really got drawn into these people, and especially the families. Yeah. And so I started creating fitness programs with Parkinson's. And basically what I do now is I've created an indoor cycling program for Parkinson's, but they have to wear like a heart rate monitor. It's the whole thing. But everything has to be approved by the doctor. So from that to a chair class to everything with that. So started doing that.
And I love these little snippets of time because I know you, so I know where you're going. It's just incredible the things that you're able to do when you just do and you don't wait for the signs.
No, I just jump in. And that was in about 2000. So I started that like end of 2014. Being that in the beginning of 2015, started with the Parkinson's and was really full force on it. But then I was working in other gyms as well, like if people know like Equinox, like just big gyms, and doing indoor cycling. And then 2016 came around and life just like smacked me.
Yeah.
And, yeah, like literally like emergency brake, what's going on, was in a relationship and thought it was amazing and then realized, got slapped in the face and I'm like, who am I? What's going on? I'm doing all these things. I'm teaching these classes, running around New York City, teaching 30 different things a week. And 30 different classes. So I'm like running here, running there, going uptown, downtown, blah, 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 blah. And I was just kind of like, what's going on? Like, I loved it, but it was just constantly up at 4:30 in the morning, going literally until 10 o'clock at night. And people know New York, that's crazy because it's kind of like you're just
the city doesn't sleep.
The city doesn't sleep. Yeah, so I got contacted from, actually, this is what's really crazy about this, how it changed my life, is I've just finished teaching a swim class, and an old friend came up, and it was my ex's friend, came up to me and was just like, Zach, what are you doing now? Like, because he knew I had left this big gym, and I was just like, well, I'm just trying to figure out where to go, how I want it to go, because I knew I wanted to start something of my own. And he's just like, I have these old students that I taught in Switzerland at a boarding school. And he was just like, they want to talk to you about building possibly one of their spaces in Mexico City. And I really ignored it. I was just like, oh, whatever. Like, Mexico City, what's that? Right. Like, I'm not going there. And he was just like, well, think about it. 2 weeks goes by, he sees me at the gym again. Did you think about it? And I was like, no. He said, would you know anyone that could possibly go and do this? Connect to, yeah. And I was like, oh, give me their number. And then like another week went by. He texted me and was just like, what are you thinking? Long story short, we finally ended up having a phone call with these people in Mexico City. And they were like, we need you to fly here next week. We want you to train our team. We want you to do all this. And I'm like, what? I don't know.
But you're like,
yeah, but I'm like, fine, get me on a plane. I love to travel. So I'm like, get me on a plane, I'll go. And I went, and it changed my entire life. Like, so that 10-day business trip to Mexico City that I kept saying no about, ended up going. And from 2016 to today, I've now built 26 different gyms all over Mexico, which has been really amazing because through Mexico, I have now traveled all over, from Australia to, I'm working on a project in China. Like, so I've been all over building these gyms and now here in the States as well. So now it's just turned into this huge thing where I kept thinking no, but it.
And I think I'll unpack that too, because he said, I mean, from what we heard, Zach, yes. And something happened in his life that knocked him down, and he maybe forgot who you were for a moment, and then something came and you're like, wait. Let me kind of get back to my program. So things happen where you forget who you are, or you have those moments. We're all human, and we have those moments where we need to take that pause, and then you're like, wait, this sounds kind of interesting. This is something I've never done before.
And it's a lot of work. I mean, when people often will reach out to me and they're like, oh, well, how do I do this? How do I and you have to be open. And it's not easy. I mean, people ask how long I've been doing it. I'm now in my 12th year of just really pushing it, and it took me that long to really understand how it goes, because now I can be more of I'm not going to do that. Where before I was just like, oh yeah, I'll do that.
But then you had too many eggs and too many baskets, and you had to kind of
just slow it down. And but yeah, just kind of being that yes person and jumping out and just really doing it. It's just kind of and don't have an attitude. I mean, of course I have an attitude about it sometimes, but it's just kind of be open-minded to have these new experiences. And when you go into these situations, be open-minded about what people are saying and ask those questions. And that's what I've always done. And if I don't feel I don't know, I just ask those questions. Yeah.
And I actually saw a quote this morning that kind of makes me think of what Zach's talking about here is, don't wait until you have the confidence to pursue something. Pursue it until you have the confidence. So I think the more that you kind of dove into new projects and were kind of excited to learn new things, that you're like, oh, hold up, I'm the expert in this? When did that happen? And really, I think oftentimes we have imposter syndrome where we're like, well, I don't know that. But you I think are such a great example of, well, why can't I be the one that figures it out? They're trying to find somebody. I'm that person.
Because now what I do more now is, I build the gyms, but I also, when companies have this now what situation, been open for 4 or 5 years, now what?
So that brings me to 2020.
Yeah.
Are you doing those types of
I am. So yeah. So in 2020, now what's happening is people are contacting me and they're like, "This is our financial situation." Because they'll send me everything.
Mm-hmm.
So this is our financial situation, or XYZ. This is where we were when we were great, and now this has happened.
Mm-hmm.
And what's been happening is this is a great exit for a lot of people. And that's what's been happening a lot. A lot of places are closing, and this is outside of kind of fitness as well. But in my industry, if people weren't doing well before 2020, this is that perfect escape plan.
Yeah.
But in my mind, I don't want to give up.
Yeah.
So when they contact me, I'm like, no, like, let's see what's going on. What can we do to move forward? But with 2020, my industry is kind of really the last to get going again.
Right.
Gyms are reopening, but there's just so many restrictions and like things that we have to do in order to get reopened. But yeah, and even for myself this year, because I've been traveling, I tell people this a lot. Like 2019 was my most successful year ever. But I flew 250,000 miles last year in 2019.
Yeah.
So, and then this year,
you're cutting ribbons.
Yeah, like literally cutting the ribbons, being like, yes. Yeah, I can fly to China real quick, and then yes, I can be in Australia, and yeah, like it's kind of like this thing of like I was just constantly on a plane. But this year's made me really slow down. So I say a lot of there's been a lot of things happening in 2020 that hasn't been great, but at the same time, it's made me slow down and appreciate just about what I really want to, how I want to move forward.
Yeah. Kind of reassess where you're at.
Yeah, because there's just time. Yeah. Because I would never, I am a very go type person. Hiking, meditating, I'm like all about the good vibes and just, and realigning about like what really matters. And that's more of what I've been really trying to focus on this year of, because we all can get caught up in everything. Of course, when you're on Facebook or Instagram or just watching TV, you're just scrolling, and that would happen to me. Yeah, I'm like, oh, that gym and like I should like go and do something with that. But now I'm more like trying to disconnect from that and just really focus on the good things. Yeah, it's like now I do these long 15-mile hikes when I'm out in Colorado now, and it's kind of like these things of really focusing on that. But then at the same time, I'm kind of going crazy, not traveling again. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do.
In a positive way, but you're also kind of eyes on the ball.
Now I'm ready to keep it going. But it's going to be a long process to get back to normal in my industry, but we'll see.
And I want to shift a little bit to, so we heard Zack's career and kind of where he's gone in fitness as far as, a business, an entrepreneur, if you will. But just thinking about your energy around your fitness personally as well. Anything that I've done that's crazy, that's a little bit more than I should think that I'm able to do, half marathons, etc. Zack's the one that inspired me to, because I know I talk about softball a lot and growing up and being competitive, but once you finish a sport, sometimes it's hard to say, well, what's next? And then you kind of start competing against yourself. And what's awesome about Zack is that he's the one that was like, well, why can't you run a half marathon? All you gotta do is just run for 2 hours, just don't stop. And I'm like, 2 hours is gonna take me 3.5. So Zack actually got me to run my first half marathon, and every time I would sign up for one, he would try his best to get to where I was. And it didn't always work out, but it finally did. And it was when I was trying to get my first sub 2 hour half marathon. And Zack was like, well, if I have to drag you across the finish line, I will. And he pretty much did. We ran a half marathon, and Zack went
on Thanksgiving Day.
On Thanksgiving Day, we got a little, well, you did. I was like, water, and he still is kicking my butt. But I think you stopped and used the restroom twice and still caught up to me and still were like, let's go, pick it up. So I think when this, our topic today is all about the energy. I think everybody feels the energy, the passion that you have around your career. For folks that are maybe trying to find more energy, or I think some of our listeners maybe are into athletics, into fitness, some are maybe trying to get into it. Like, what do you recommend, or what kind of advice do you have?
You gotta really find what you enjoy. And that's really the thing of try everything. 'Cause that's what I've done. like, you know, in New York, there's so many times we have to get certified in certain things. I'm certified in rowing, to teach rowing. I'm certified. I did try yoga. Did not. It's just not my jam.
Yeah.
But I've gone to so many certifications within my career because, you know, coaching and teaching. But my own personal workouts, it's really what I enjoy. I enjoy to run. Like that's literally my I'm an ambassador for Lululemon, a clothing brand. If many of you know the clothing brand, but what has been so amazing with what the company's been doing is like, what is your why?
Mm-hmm.
What is your yoga?
Yeah.
And, you know, yoga doesn't, when I'm saying what is your yoga, that's not always yoga. It's anything.
Yeah.
So like my quote unquote yoga is going on a long run.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really it's really helped me a lot of why are you doing this? And I do this a lot in my trainings and when I'm traveling around or even with my clients when I'm building a gym.
Yeah.
When someone calls me or emails me or whatever, I don't just take every project now.
Yeah.
I'm always that person of like, why are you doing this?
What's the purpose?
What is the purpose?
I need to see an initiative.
Yeah, like, and you know, I don't want you to do it. I want you to really do it for yourself. Because so many times people are doing it for someone else. And that is the biggest mistake. And it's kind of like, do it. What do you want? What do you want to do? Don't think about how you want your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whoever. Don't think about how you want them. Yeah, like what makes you comfortable.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to help you move to that next level.
I love that point you made because sometimes we get stuck in, you know, I want to start running because I want to be a size 6, and it's like because we think a size 6 means happiness, and I think if we tie it to things that are I don't want to say shallow, but superficial like that, it's like how do you want to feel at the end of a workout? I want to feel like accomplished. I want to feel I see my progress. I ran to this mailbox today. Tomorrow I'm going to run to the second mailbox. It's the steps that take you towards
and
a better version of yourself.
Like, and you know, and being strong, like I know so many people that race in triathlons, and people that are on like swim teams and everything, that are bigger people.
Oh yeah.
And they can kick my ass. I know, they can literally kick my ass. So it's like, don't think about it in that way. Think about what's making you happy. And what's gonna like get you going. And that's kind of that biggest thing of like, if you have that goal, let's set that goal. And
try everything.
Have a goal. Try everything. And try it. Like just try it all and see what drives you. See what you like, and take it from there. And what is your why? That's the biggest thing. Why are you doing it? Because if you really don't have a why, you may do that thing for a couple of weeks, and you're just gonna fall out of it. So it's kind of like. Why are you doing it?
Okay, so if you haven't noticed, we're in a room that is being renovated right now, and the gentlemen are coming back in to fix the room. So before we close out, Zack, I want to ask you just a few questions. I've got a fast rapid fire few questions, okay? The first one is, what is your favorite development? Are you reading books? Are you doing podcasts? What are you doing right now to keep learning and keep growing?
I'm literally just within fitness. Personal. I mean, I'm starting to read more, which I never really did. So I am starting to do more of that. But I'm also just focusing on my own workouts.
We're almost done. Sorry.
I'm focusing on my own workouts and kind of taking it from there.
Okay.
Yeah, really just doing my own personal runs, my own kind of workouts.
Being mindful in the moment of what you're doing, setting goals. Okay, great. Let's see. What is your best advice for those trying to just make it through this year? If you maybe have some friends that are like, oh, it just needs to be 2021, and then I can get back to being, productive, being ambitious. What would you say?
I mean, I would say it depends on different people's situation, but if you are able, if you have the means to do it, do those things that you've been saying. God, I wish I had time.
Just do it.
Just do it.
You have time.
I wish I had time because all we have right now is time.
Yeah.
And so it's like those things. So in 2021, if you're like, oh, I don't have time now, we've had all this time.
You're burning the time.
Yeah, you're burning literally the time now. So really, what are those things that you want to do? Or just start setting those goals for yourself. And talking about goals, people used to set 5-year goals, 10-year goals. No more of that. 3 months, 1 month for some people. What do you want to accomplish in the next month? And then do it. And put that aside. And again, when you're setting those goals, those distractions that you have, you got to put those in your calendar. Be like, this is what I'm doing. Like, I'm doing it today.
Yeah.
And if you have those distractions, or it's like when people are just like, well, I have kids, figure it out.
Yeah. Talk to other people that have kids and that have figured it out.
Yeah.
Talk to those folks. Can't give advice there just yet. But definitely, understanding
that time aside, because we all have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, those 3 hours that you spend on social media a day.
Yeah.
Take an hour away.
We talked about time in last week's episode.
Yeah.
We'll circle back on that.
Yeah.
One more question, Zack. If people want to follow your journey, I know you're on Instagram.
Yeah.
Where can they find you if they want to learn more about your career?
Yeah, so on Instagram, I'm Zaxfit, so ZAX_FIT on Instagram, or my site.
Do you tweet? Do you TikTok?
I don't tweet. I don't TikTok.
We're not that cool.
We're not that cool. I'm really bad at those.
Pretty funny TikToks though. We should maybe we'll try TikTok.
Yeah, we should do a TikTok for sure. But yeah, no, just kind of Instagram. I'm very simple with my Instagram.
There's inspiration.
Yes.
Kind of follow what you're doing.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Zack. We'll take it.
Yeah, thank you.
For taking it out.
Thank you guys for tuning in.
We'll see you. We'll talk about our interview and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope that you enjoyed this episode as much as I surely enjoyed creating it with my cousin Zack. Had a really great time through the process of interviewing him, and definitely had some nuggets that I am taking back with me. I'm putting in my pocket because really what I loved about Zack's message is that he is a yes man. He wants to find a way to make things happen. But at the same time, being a yes person is not always saying yes to everything all the time. But when you have a new project, when you have a new endeavor, when something's presented to you that's exciting or maybe scary, how can you find a way to say yes to it? And I loved the messaging that Zack had talked through and broke it down in kind of Zack's 3 steps to yes. And the first thing that you want to do is you want to show up. Zack talked a lot about just being present, showing up, taking the opportunity. He talked about having the crummy class schedule at first when he joined the gym, right? Just showing up and being present and being available and networking and making yourself known in whatever community you're trying to break into. Then he talked about asking questions and had some laughs about don't be that person that laughs at the joke that they don't understand. Ask the question. Don't be the person in the back of the room too afraid to admit that they have a question or they don't understand. Ask those questions. Clarify the objectives. When you're maybe presented with a new task or a stretch assignment at work, ask those questions. And then lastly, do your homework, do your research. There's so much free information on the internet that's going to help you say yes to something that's new, exciting, or maybe even scary. And then I loved the messaging around, Zack mentioned how he had a rough year, right? And I think that we can all relate to that probably this year. It's really been a trying time for a lot of us. And maybe you felt like this year has kicked you while you're down. And what I hope that you got out of that messaging is that sometimes we have a rough time, we have a rough year, and we need to take that time for ourselves. We need to maybe find the time for ourselves. So maybe it's saying no to projects and it's saying, I've got to take some time on the side here to figure my stuff out. But something's going to happen and something's going to present itself that reminds you of who you are. And I really do hope that if you are finding yourself having a tough year or going through a time such as that, that you can hold on to maybe a tool or a resource or a trick or a hack that we'll be presenting in this series that will help you remind yourself of who you are and find yourself once again, and maybe even find yourself to be the even better, best version of yourself that you could have even possibly imagined. And that's truly my hope for you through this time. All right. Thank you so much. Until next time.